Welcome to the Digital Diary. This is episode number 1. I'm super excited to be hitting record and opening up a digital diary. I am gonna just intermittently post in here as and when I'm feeling called. That's kind of how I connect with my paper journal anyway. I'm not a regimented journaler. I always link in when it feels like an intuitive call to do so. So I'm excited to be back, and I am also excited to be hosting Bloom State Radio with guests this time. So get your ass over to Bloom State Radio Season 2 for some very beautiful interviews with some stunning guests. But for now, we are here in the digital diary. We are in February 2026. We are a month after the JEP file release, and the contents of those files have been intense to read. So I didn't connect with them for a little while after they were released, just because I didn't feel ready for the trigger. But what I will just briefly touch on is the contents of what I read were deeply disturbing and a complete violation against a woman's and women and children, basically. It goes into rape, all sorts of dark assaults. And what I actually believe is that the releasing of these files has created a deep trigger within the collective sexual energies. And I believe that we're going to see an increase in the cases of violence against women and children. So, yeah, the nature of this episode today is to touch a little bit around a couple of the people who were listed in these supposed files. And the people specifically I'm going to touch on are what we would deem as a quote-unquote spiritual leader. Now, anyone who holds power must also be able to hold responsibility that comes with that. And what we see within a lot of these leadership dynamics is an abuse of their power, whether that be male yoga teachers or male PTs or these spiritual leaders or anybody of that capacity. And, I've actually been in a workforce where there was a quote unquote leader who was an absolute bitch, and we didn't get on because I don't like when I see people abusing their power for their own gain. But to stay on topic within the spiritual field, I've also witnessed, experienced, and heard many stories of a local spiritual healer. He groomed me to the point where he massaged my boobs. That was my final no, obviously. But to the point that he used his spiritual lingo and the fact that he was into this Reiki to sort of soften me up a bit. But it did take time because I was initially very, very resistant to him. But I had all my friends around me and they were all going and singing his praises, oh my God, this healing guy, and la 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 la. But I was skeptical initially. I was. But the time that I let my defenses down, when I was well, maybe I'm just being a bit too sharp with my perspective, that's when he massaged my boobs. And I would just remember freezing. Thankfully, he is no longer within the community anymore. He passed away. And I know that sounds so savage, doesn't it? But people like that, they get away with shit. How many women have been groped at the hands of this man, particularly if they've been vulnerable? Whereabouts? Like, how far has he gone with that? I mean, there's so many questions. But healing and moving on from that, it was relatively easy, to be honest, only because I had great people around me, and I learned actually from that experience that not everyone who proclaims light is a light being and actually has your interest at best. A lot of them just want to take your cash, deceive you, and run. Not all of them, but there are a lot. So we see that within these Jeffy Epi files. We see Deepak Chopra. I already thought he was a bit weird anyway. And I also see Eckhart Tolle. Now, he does look a bit weird, but I actually rate his teachings. I actually learned a lot from The Power of Now and The New Earth. I think it was called The New Earth anyway. Lots of perspective shifts and leaps in my perspective on the way that the mind works. But like I said, with great power becomes great responsibility. And obviously the motive was warped. I don't know what their original intention was. Maybe they were groomed, maybe they were paid off, who knows? All we know is that these people have been listed within these files of horrific crimes against women and children. That's enough to be said on that. But what I would like to share is some insight on leadership and how that comes with great responsibility. So I know that I'm a natural born leader. I know that I've led contact centers. I manage myself. I manage my own household. I'm CEO of my own house. I manage my child. I manage my day to day. I know that I get shit done, and I get shit done well. Being a business assistant, I know how to plan correctly, organize, and just get shit done. And I love that about me. But I know that great responsibility comes with that. And I know that I want to move in this world with integrity and truth. And I'm not scared to rock the boat with truth. And I have been met with many different reactions in the face of the truth that I express. I've been gaslit. There's been attempts to manipulate me because they can't handle the ferocity of this energy. Not my problem. And I know I'm not perfect in my expression, but I know that my tongue is sharp, and I know that I can burn bridges with one word. So, I mean, it's been a learning, but like I say, this is my containment of the responsibility that I have as a leader and someone who can influence. I know that I have the capacity to do that, but that's not my intention to influence. But I know I do have the capacity to hold that, because I've had lots of women contact me. I've even had men approach me and say that my work and just my natural vocalization has helped them steer the ship in certain directions. And it's such an honor for me to be able to speak so freely and know that my intention isn't to influence, but it just naturally has that as a byproduct. But what I do see in this position that I'm in, this beautiful position as I lead my own life, I am the leader of my own life. No one else leads my life for me. I lead my life for me. But there is a little bit of nuance on that, because we do ebb and flow and weave with the God energy as well. So we're being led simultaneously, I believe, if we allow ourselves to lean back and just allow that flow and that force to move with us, for us, in the direction of that strong rooted leadership position to be the leader of our own lives. But being this observant, intuitive, very energy sensitive woman, I can sense bullshit. I know bullshit when I smell it. Oh yeah, it's got quite the aroma. And what I see a lot of, and it's more so particularly from men, is that they'll use their sub little story, their violin, and I'm not invalidating someone's experience that they've been through. Absolutely not at all. I hold great empathy for that. But what I don't like is when they use that empathy to get to the softness of people's hearts for their own gains. That's manipulation. When they're playing the same little sob story over and over again, and this happened to me and I used it for this and now I forgive. But actually, they're playing their own pity party so they can gain clients, and they're not actually standing in the truth of who they are, what they've moved through, but they call themselves alchemists. It's actually hilarious. So if you're listening to this and you also see that, just witness it and know that you're not crazy. Because a lot of the times, the ones that see this are the only ones that are seeing this, or we're a minority of seeing the bullshit and the behind the mask that they present. It only takes looking at the way that their face is held, the energy behind their eyes, their posture. And I'm not saying that we're all perfect. We're not at all. We all have our down days, absolutely. But if you're proclaiming that you're this all forgiving, all liberated facilitator, you're a fucking phony, and I'm calling it out. So much so that I caught news of something recently where there is a local facilitator who was chatting shit about me. And oh my God, it was brilliant, because I've got some incredible poetry that's come from that. And again, it just re-solidifies my knowing that these false light leaders are just naive to their own internal chaos and projection. Now, yes, I'm a facilitator of yoga. I love holding space for people so that they can move through the isness of what is and connect to the union, their union. Everyone's union is unique. Yoga isn't just love and light and good vibes only. Like, you only have to practice yoga to know that that's not what yoga is about. And the mat-based yoga is a fraction of what yoga is about. It's all encompassing, all holistic, but this is like a relatively new age version of yoga. Anyway, the Western world has conditioned us into believing that anyone who's a facilitator of yoga must have this beautiful, calm, light-based presence, and that they don't swear. Like, there's this insane stereotype that's placed on a yoga facilitator, and I don't fit the criteria of a Western yoga facilitator. Let me just say that right now. And anyone who knows me will potentially agree with that. I am very outspoken. I can have a sharp tongue. I can say what needs to be said and hold no shame about it. That is me being with the isness of what is for me, in union with what is for me. Not what a stereotypical whitewashed version of a yogini will look like. I mean, this is a whole different topic in itself, but I just wanted to say that, yes, I'm a facilitator of this incredibly beautiful sacred practice, but it doesn't mean that I fit the stereotypical criteria of good vibes only. You will literally never hear me say good vibes only, because it makes me cringe. Because life is not just good vibes only. Life is an ebb and flow of vibration. I see that vibration is like if we were hooked up onto a machine that checked our pulse. If we are flatlining, we're dead, right? So I love those ebbs and flows. I've got my roots anchored, but I allow myself to move with the ebbs and flow of emotion and energy that flows through me, to me, for me, and for me to be a beacon of that expression, which is what is the most beautiful thing about moving in this human experience, is our expression. What my view on this expression is, I believe that we're all deeply divine. Absolutely. maybe not all of us actually, it depends whether you believe in like reptilians or whatever, but hey, who's to say that that's not divine? If that's what's moving through and around us within this 3D matrix, who's to say that that's not divine? Nuance to that, of course. But what I am saying is that the feedback that I get from people is that they love being in my presence, but I'm not trying to hold a presence. I feel like the work that I've devoted to sobriety and discipline and my practice and motherhood and living the human experience actually allows me to just fucking accept and embody what it means to be a spiritual being living a human experience, or vice versa. Who knows? Great mystery there, honeys. But in no way do I proclaim to have it all together. I quite openly tell the people who are closest to me, like, the deepest totality of what is ripe and true for me. And it can be dark at times. You know, there's not everything that comes from me is light. But what I do know is that I am aware of this shadowy aspect that I have, and I know that I'm always on a path of refining. But I'm not broken, I'm not damaged, and I don't constantly need to be doing work to feel like this worthy being, to have a platform upon which I can speak. I know that there's a simultaneous movement in that, whereas, yes, of course, we've got blind spots and there's things that we always need to look at. But actually, can't we just take a break? Can we just chill the fuck out and just enjoy the isness of what is being presented to us in everyday life? The magic that is around us is insane if we allow ourselves to just slow down and just witness what's happening around us. And that is what I truly believe is self-mastery, and how we become the leaders of our own lives, by speaking up when we want to speak up, by knowing when to shut the fuck up and stop speaking, and to know when to lean in and to lean out, and to just have fun and to train and do all the things that make us feel great, because we only get this one life in these bodies. You know, who knows what happens to our souls when we transition. What we do know is that we get one shot at being in this human experience as me. I only get one experience being Leanne Kane, as far as I'm aware. So why would I not want to level up and move in a way that is sober and clear, and excited and open, and ready and willing, and to not walk on eggshells around anybody, because why would I do that? And to call shit out when it's necessary. And what I want to share is this poem around the false light leaders that I'd written before the Jeffy Epi files were released. I think it's very relevant. We've all been in management situations where the manager is just an absolute dickhead, but pretends to be something that they're not. We have people in leadership positions who should not be in leadership positions because they don't know how to lead, right? Where are you leading us to? I don't know you, I don't trust you, so how can you lead us somewhere? Like, what? Why would I trust you? But what I can trust is the direction of this flow that wants to move for me, through me, and around me. So let's just get to the poem, and maybe you will resonate with this, because I think it can be applied to all leadership positions. Let's see, where is it? Okay. False light leaders, bleeders onto the naive believers, fabrication of sorrow into the fabric of the weaver, the manipulated dreamer, woke but consciousness broke, fractured into the being proclaimed to be free. But you see, I see, eventually, truth is a cork stronger than an illusion that's brought to me. Pain your own pity, false light masters, energy nothing but gritty. Pull others down behind your clown crown, but underneath is the painted upside down smile, but truth is in the frown. All is revealed in timelines unfilled. Sovereign is explained, but energy drained, and false smiles is what's the fermented, demented curd. Illness strikes, but good vibes only. Crowds surround, but truth is you're deeply lonely. Unresolved, Carly energy brings complete ego dissolve. World revolves, lies for gains, pumped up fake clip frequency. Go crawl back into your cave, into the darkness that you reject. Don't come out until it's ready to eject. That's where sovereignty stands, when you're willing to look at the muck on your own dirty hands. Projection, deception, more murky waters is a facet of your own reflection. Whew. There's a lot of that I love, actually, and it's when you're willing to look at the muck on your own dirty hands. I think that's like a massive one, isn't it? It's like, how can we possibly point dirty hands on other people's faces when our own hands are dirty? Like, your work is to take a look at the muck on your own dirty hands and do your work. And that's the shadow work. And the shadow is beautiful, right? And we've been conditioned to be afraid of the dark, even from a kids. Be afraid of the dark. Why are we scared of the dark? Obviously, if we walk down a fucking dark alley on a Saturday night, of course that's going to be scary and we would avoid that. But I mean, when you're a kid and you walk around the house in the dark, it's scary. Why are we scared of that? And I think a lot of that conditioning bleeds through into how we face the shadowy aspects of ourselves. And I catch myself. Being a mother is an incredibly humbling experience and the deepest spiritual work that I've ever moved through and with, and it's a continuum. You know, you don't have to be sleep deprived and snap at your kids to be like, whoa, that was intense. But then it's coming back into the light and integration, isn't it? And there's certain dynamics that will trigger us and trigger shadowy aspects more so. And that's why discernment is really important. Discernment about how we spend our time, who we spend our time with, what levels of trigger is actually really unhealthy and then borderline toxic. And how do we move through that? And yeah, I'm going to leave that one food for thought. But what I would say is that it's 2026 and the intentional programming is to confuse us and strip our attention away from what really matters. And I would say that's devotion to self and others, obviously. But how can we fully show up for another if we don't know how to show up in honoring of who we are ourselves? So yeah, don't be following just anyone and taking what anyone says as literal, especially not on social media. We're seeing all sorts of shit, and there are tons of AI accounts just spitting out all sorts of rubbish. Be the leader of your own life and discern, discipline, contain your energy, respect your energy and your presence and what you bring to the world as your art. And yeah, have fun. Thanks so much for listening.